The Ride Home Rants podcast is brought to you by Reaper Apparel Company. Reaper Apparel offers a casual line of superb fit, finish, and comfort. We design for those who refuse to die slowly and choose to live untamed. For those who aren't afraid to face the dark, for the ones that thrive in it, and for those who can appreciate life through a grim lens. That's Reaper Apparel Company. Go to the link in the description of this episode, use the promo code Mike Bono, and get 10% off. Also, the Ride Home Rants podcast is brought to you by Tactical Brotherhood, all American-made apparel, which helps support the Second Amendment. You can also find all this in the description of this episode with the link Tactical Brotherhood. Part of every proceed does go to helping veterans. It is a very good cause. All American-made products made right here in Minnesota. Go and check them out. Use the promo code PATRIOT15 to get 15% off your purchase. The Ride Home Rants podcast wants to thank you for listening and let everybody know that we do offer monthly subscriptions to help support the show in other ways other than listening and downloading each episode. What you will get with each subscription is you will get bonus episodes that aren't released to everybody. You will also have a chance to ask me anything each and every month where I will put out a special episode just to answer your questions. You will also get more exclusive content that is not released to everybody. To subscribe to the show, go and click on the link in the description of this episode, and I look forward to your added support and to help us keep this show going. The Ride Home Rants podcast is also brought to you by Buddy's Beard Care. Buddy's Beard Care provides premium men's grooming products at an affordable price. Products are made in Ohio, and Buddy's Beard Care supports local. The majority of our supplies are from other Ohio-based companies. You can find them on social media at Buddy's Beard Care or online at buddysbeardcare.com. Use the promo code BONO15 and he will save you 15%. I've been using these products for a little over 6 months now, and my beard has never felt healthier. It has never grown faster, and according to my wife, it has never felt softer. Also, the Ride Home Rants podcast is brought to you by former guest of the show in Matt Landowski in Sweet Hands Sports. Elevate their game with Sweet Hands Sports. Our sports gloves are designed for champions, providing ultimate grip and durability. Achieve greatness with every match. Choose Sweet Hands Sports for the winning edge. Grip your victory at sweethandsports.com. Use the promo code BONO10 and he will save you 10%. He has sent me a complimentary pair of golf gloves. They are so comfortable, durable, and breathable. You won't find a better pair of gloves out there. Again, sweethandsports.com, promo code BONO10. Lastly, the Ride Home Rants podcast is brought to you by Deemed Fit, a clothing company from first responders for first responders. These products are so comfortable. They look great. They have great messages on them. They are provided to support first responders, especially those who worked through COVID. All of the proceeds are going to helping veterans and first responders with their mental and physical health. This is a great cause. I support anything that has to do with our first responders and our veterans. Again, deemedfit.co, promo code Mike Bono will save you 20%. Now, let's start the show.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Ride Home Rants podcast. This is Fitty filling in this week for Mike Bono, and today we bring you the 2025 NFL Draft recap with four very special guests. We got the Fab Four here today, recapping all the things about the NFL Draft, where we have the six-pack of questions coming right at you for the hottest topics out there post-draft. Before we get into the show today, make sure you peep all of the sponsors from the pre-roll and the post-roll, as they're all small business owners and they're great supporters of this show. We can't do the show without them, and of course, all these wonderful guests. But make sure you peep all those sponsors of the show. So without further ado, I'm going to have our guests introduce themselves, and then they're going to tell you if they've ever ridden a horse and who is tougher, Olympic heavyweight wrestlers or pro heavyweight boxers. We're going to start with Coach Garvey.
All right, Bill Garvey. Hello, everybody. Yes, I've ridden a horse, I think twice in my life, 100 years ago. Not as an adult. So, I mean, just I guess it's a half a yes, but not as a full-grown human being. No, I have not, and probably never will. And then who's tougher? That's a tough one. But I think I'm going wrestler, right? I think wrestling is its own entity. You're a different type of person. I know getting punched square in the face is really hard, but wrestling's it's a different gig. I don't know. I go wrestler.
Okay. All right. Next, we're going to go with Drew.
What's up, guys? Drew McLaughlin here. I have not ridden a horse before, although I'd love to try it. It seems like it'd be awesome. And in regards to the question, I'm going to pro boxer. Those dudes beat the crap out of each other for 45 minutes, and it's bloody and it's disgusting and it's real, and I think they're tough.
Okay. Tony.
My name's Tony, and I have never ridden a horse, and I have no intentions to at all. And as far as who's tougher, pro boxers or pro wrestlers, I will say pro wrestlers, and this is not because
pro heavyweight boxers or Olympic heavyweight wrestlers.
Ooh, I would have to say Olympic wrestlers. I mean, you got one that became a pro wrestler eventually, and another one that dabbled in it. So I'm still gonna go with pro wrestlers. And it's not because I've watched wrestling for 20 years.
Olympic wrestlers. All right, Chris, you're next.
Guys, Christopher Marsco here. I have had the opportunity to ride a horse before, and I'm going to have to say boxers. I think it's not as physically demanding, but if you could stand in there and take the physical abuse that you take, you got to be one tough son of a gun. So I'm going to say the boxer.
You know, it's a hard thing to debate, and we're not going to debate it on the NFL recap, but here's what I'm going to say. When you're a boxer, you're a heavyweight boxer, all you know is boxing, right? When you're an Olympic wrestler of that caliber, an Olympic heavyweight wrestler, you have to know, like, grappling. You've probably dabbled in jiu-jitsu a little bit and probably some Muay Thai or something of that, but also you're just super, super strong, right? You have a ton of endurance, and the physical toughness of getting on that mat and getting thrown in the air and body slammed on your head, you know, can probably maybe a little more painful of getting punched in the face. Plus, and I love boxing, you know, I'm a big boxing fan. Nobody won a boxing heavyweight championship with a broken neck. Kurt Angle won an Olympic gold championship with a broken neck. So that's where I give the nod to that. But either way, I don't want to meet Kurt Angle in an alleyway, and I sure don't want to meet Tyson Fury in an alleyway either. So I think everybody can agree on that. So we're going to go right into the questions here. We're going to go.
What about the horse? Did you ever ride a horse?
You ride a horse?
Oh, no, I'm scared to deth of horses. No, I'm scared to death of horses.
I'm surprised you didn't on your honeymoon or something. That's what I would think you doing it.
No, absolutely not. I wouldn't ride a baby horse from here to the wall.
That's a pony, Coach. That's a pony. That's a pony.
A baby horse, a pony. I won't even ride My Little Pony. So no, I think horses are majestic and I think they're pretty, but I would never get on one. I think there's just too many things that could go wrong. Definitely could go wrong. But we're gonna go Coach Garvey, Drew, Tony, and Marsco on the answers of the questions here. So first one, we're gonna have a little bit of fun though. But if you had an expansion team and you got to pick one player from this NFL draft to start your expansion team with, any player, any school, any position, who are you picking? Or who would you have picked?
Ding.
And he's the first person on the team.
Yeah, first person on the team.
We have no other members, right?
Nobody else. You're starting the team with this draft pick.
Sugar.
I got to ask you first, you're the most tenured coach on the podcast.
I know, but this is a tough one. I'm going to stick to my guns of who I thought was the best player in the draft. I'm going Abdul Carter. That's who I would pick.
Okay. Drew, what about you on this? If you have the expansion team and you're picking one player to start at the team with, who are you picking as that guy?
I'm picking one player, and he's my first player, right?
Yeah.
Then I'm going straight for culture and setting a culture of the team. And if that's the case, I'm going from that dude from LSU that the Patriots picked. Campbell's his last name, right? The lineman. That dude is like he came out of the win with the football in his hand. He is all about it. He's all about the team. When he said that quote, like he's going to protect, he's going to fight and die to protect Drake May, I almost became a Patriots fan just from hearing that come out of his mouth. So I'm going with the culture guy. I'm going with the dude the Patriots picked.
Okay. What about you, Tony? Who would you have picked?
My pick, you can never go wrong with a great two-way player and a hard-working athlete, Travis Hunter. You got somebody that can play wide receiver and can play cornerback. He can do it all. Kick returner, like he could be the next, say, Devin Hester or something.
Okay. What about you, Marsco? What are you saying on this?
I was worried about everyone stealing my answer, but I guess I'll go with the chalk here. I'm taking Cam Ward. You address the quarterback, you address the leadership, you address the culture. As a Browns fan, I don't mind being in the light right now as we are taking Shedeur and trading back from Hunter and just the controversy that we've stirred. But I think one of the grossly under talked about things how good Cam Ward is. I think the Titans hit a home run there. So he's a defensive minded guy, and what a great quarterback could do to you. Taking Cam Ward.
Okay, for me, I would say you got to set the culture, but you got to have a safe pick that even if they are not phenomenal, they still will be a good player. And I think that's a D tackle from Michigan, Mason Graham. I think because his ceiling is probably pro, but his floor is probably really, really good. And have a 8 or 10, 12-year career. And he's won a national championship. He played under an NFL coach in Jim Harbaugh, played under that guy who's won a national championship. I think he's a tone setter. I think he'd be a good guy to go with that. So that would just have been my guy with that. But let's go back to Coach Garvey on this one. Coach, who do you think had the best draft out of all the teams?
Ooh.
Oh, that's a good.
It's a good one. I mean, I think there were a lot, honestly. I mean, but the best one, honestly, I think the issue that I have a hard time with is the other free agent moves too, right? Which is still in the back of your brain, which is not the question, right? So it shouldn't really be there. So right. I think I'm going Cleveland.
Okay.
So I got a lot of value.
Okay. I don't disagree with that.
A lot of value.
Okay. What are you saying, Drew?
Yeah, I think this was a really deep draft. So I think, like Coach Garvey said, I think a lot of teams improved over the weekend just by how deep this draft is. It wasn't really star-studded, but there's a lot of good players in the 4th round, the 5th round, even the 6th, 7th round. But I got to be biased. I do. I think the Titans really had a really good draft, and I was really skeptical going into it because I know how they drafted in the past, and it's been horrible. It's been really bad. But I mean, you got your quarterback of the future. You got a really good D end out of UCLA. You got a top tier safety out of Penn State. You get 2 really good receivers, an A.O. Minor and the dude from Florida. And even in your late rounds, you get that running back from Michigan who is a bell cow. You got a lot of guys that could fill in some spots here with a team that's so bad. These guys are going to get playing time almost immediately. So I really think they stuck to their board, and every pick they had, I was pretty excited about.
Okay. All right. Tony, what are you saying? Who's that team that had the best draft this year?
I'm going to have to say the Browns had a pretty decent draft this year. You got to need a defense to go with Myles Garrett. You're going to have one of your rookie quarterbacks. So they've more than exceeded their quarterback need. And you got another running back. I believe they drafted 2 running backs, if memory serves me right. So it looks like they're probably going to be in the stages of a rebuild or something like that. But I got to say the Browns did pretty decent.
Okay. What about you, Chris? Who are you saying had the best draft?
I'd love to say the Browns and homer it up a little more, but this is kind of sacrilegious in my family. Unfortunately, I'm going to have to say the Baltimore Ravens. I thought getting Malachi Starks as late as they did, being a former number 1 overall recruit and very battle-tested and proven at Georgia, thought that was a tremendous pick. Mike Green fell to them in the second round from Marshall. Reportedly, he had character issues, but you put him in that Ravens culture, and that's kind of exactly what they put outside on the 3-4. And then you look at somebody like Emory Jones, who they got all the way in the third round. I mean, he's a great lineman that played a lot of games at LSU. So I think on those first 3 picks alone, I mean, they just do what they do. When you're a good team, you get to pick from the back and take whatever falls to you, and damn, they're good at scooping them up.
Sure. I think there's probably three teams that you could make arguments for. I would say probably number 3 is the Titans, because they did get a lot of depth, so I will give you credit on that, Drew. I don't know if I'm real crazy about the pick of Cam Ward trying to lead your franchise, though, long term. But I thought that everybody else they got some great depth pieces that can probably help them sooner than later. I think the Browns would probably be number 2. But I'm going to say probably the Giants had the best draft. And the reason is you probably got the best overall player in Abdul Carter in that aspect. But you got Jackson Dart. Now, the great thing about that is, and even though we're just talking about strictly about the draft, there's no pressure on him to play because you're behind Winston and you're behind Russell Wilson. So to get that type of player, let him sit. This could almost be the Chad Pennington 2.0. Now, a lot of you guys are young, and Coach Garvey and I remember, though, Chad Pennington coming out. He sat behind like Ray Lucas and Vinny Testaverde for a couple years, basically 2 years, then went on and had a really, really good career. I think this could be the same thing with Jackson Dart. But then to get like Darius Alexander, the big D tackle of the Toledo Rockets, in there in the third round, and then you got Cam Scatterbo, who can show that he's a really, really good running back with what he did in the college football playoffs. Maybe a little bit of Peyton Hillis 2.0 in there as well. I think the Giants got 4 impact players right away that can play right away if needed. Maybe Dart if he got press into action, but really maybe 3 guys in that sense. So, we'll see, though. I think it was the Giants. So, talking about quarterbacks, so leads me into the next question. Did the Steelers do the right thing by not drafting a quarterback early in the draft while they wait on the decision of Aaron Rodgers? Coach Garvey, what do you think?
Well, that was going to be my comment. You bringing up the Giants and having quarterbacks. If the Steelers get Rodgers or even Kirk Cousins, and I know Kirk Cousins failed bad in Atlanta, but he's still certainly a very capable quarterback. The Steelers, I think, get in that conversation to have a heck of a draft because of what they picked up free agent-wise. But that wasn't the question. To that point, I think so, right? And I guess that's kind of a cop-out answer, right? But if they get Aaron Rodgers, yes, because they addressed a bunch of issues up front that they needed on defense. And I think they did it with a lot of quality. The one thing I'll give them, right, just they don't fold under the pressure. They stick to their thought and and what their belief is, and they do it. So I say yes, just because of that. Okay. Until they don't make the playoffs and have a losing record, then I'm wrong.
If they do that, then Mike Tomlin gets fired, and I'll be the happiest guy in the world.
But I give them credit for sticking to their belief.
You know what?
That's hard to do.
I'll talk about it, though, but I'm not in disagreement with you. Drew, what do you say? Did the Steelers do the right thing by not drafting a quarterback early to wait on Aaron Rodgers?
I cannot wait to hear your response to this. I knew there would be a Steelers question here at some point. I just can't wait to hear it. Yeah, I think so as well. Like Coach Garvey said, they got a standard there and they got a culture, and they really stick by to that culture through and through no matter what. One thing, being a Titans fan, I knew how you really kind of studied this quarterback class, and there really wasn't any starters other than Cam Ward in the class. I truly believe, a lot of backups, but I don't think there's too many starters. So, they probably sat there and thought, what are we really gaining by taking a Shedeur Sanders right now? What are we gaining by taking a Jackson Dart, Dylan Gabriel? I don't think they really thought the value was really there, and they didn't do it. And I also think they got to know Aaron Rodgers is coming if they're not going to do it. First off. Second off, Will Howard in the 6th round, I thought he was not that great, but I didn't think he'd go in the 6th round. I thought he'd go 4 or 5. So taking a flyer on him, you never know what's going to happen, what he can do in a good spot with good coaching. So, but to your point, I say, no, I think they did good by not taking a quarterback early.
Okay. What about you, Tony? What's your answer to this?
I will have to say I think the Steelers made the right move, and all signs are pointing to Aaron Rodgers somehow signing with the Steelers, somehow finding the mountain of youth, and like Tom Brady, and making the Steelers top dogs potentially. But then again, the standard has been the standard for the past few years, and if the Steelers didn't go under 500 with all the drama and all the head cases on their team, I can't see them going under 500 this year. It's just the standard. It's just the standard. But they're going to have to do something as far as TJ Watt goes, because he's going to want some big boy money soon.
Okay. What about you, Chris? What do you got on this?
Well, as a Browns fan, I'm disgusted because I think they're a great organization and they know exactly what they're doing. So both scenarios here. If they do get Aaron Rodgers or Kirk Cousins because they did bypass a quarterback in the draft, I don't think either of them have any tread on the tire left anyway. And even though the standard is the standard and the culture is great, I think Mike Tomlin and Steeler Nation are finding out that when you don't have a quarterback, it doesn't matter how great you are. You can't go to a meaningful level in the playoffs. You could be good and compete and put out a good product, but you can't compete with the Mahomes and Allens of the world when you can't put up the points when you don't have elite quarterback play. So they're positioning themselves this year by not taking one of these quarterbacks, which I agree with Drew. I didn't think any of them were that great after Cam Ward anyway. And I think they're setting themselves up to draft one of these guys next year. I think whether they took somebody like the Browns took Marcus Mariota, I don't understand that one. Instead of doing something like that, I think they're going to go the veteran route. It's a smart move. Nationally, it's going to be perceived by them, and I don't think they're going to be that good anyway. So I think their draft pick will be in a spot where he would take a good quarterback. I mean, Big Ben was, 10, 12, somewhere in there. So you don't necessarily have to be in that top 5 slot to get one. So, no, I think they were validated in what they did, and you'll see the fruit of their decision next year.
Here's what I'll say. As we've seen, when guys leave the Steelers, they've really, really shown their true colors. Le'Veon Bell, Antonio Brown, the way George Pickens behaves, Juju Smith-Schuster, the issues Ben Roethlisberger brought to the team during those young Tomlin areas, Pouncey, his issues as well. The one thing about Tomlin, he kept a lot of it under wraps. Now, whether that was him really just getting on his guys or the security personnel keeping all that down or whatever they had going on, they did it for the most part a pretty good job. But if you don't draft Shedeur Sanders, it talks about Mike Tomlin probably found him to be uncontrollable and the organization couldn't control him. So it says something because a lot of those other guys faced serious criminal charges once they left the Steelers. So things were going on there. So I think Tomlin did the right thing. If he doesn't think he could have controlled him and controlled the narrative behind what Sanders brings, I think they did the right thing. I also think that Mason Rudolph did lead you to the playoffs a couple years ago at the end of the season, so I'm pretty sure he thinks he can probably win 9 games with him. So with that being said, though, we're going to talk about the elephant in the room on the draft. Why do you think Shedeur Sanders dropped? Was it talent, his personality, his dad, lack of winning, only going 13-11 in 2 years at Colorado, or was it something else? We're going to be honest and upfront and raw with this one. So, Coach Garvey, you've coached a long time. You've coached NFL caliber players. You've coached quarterbacks that have went to the NFL. You've coached Division III players. So you've seen it all in a long time of coaching. What was it with Sanders in your opinion?
I think it first starts, number one, with his ability. I just don't think it was a top 10 ability. I think I said that on the pre-draft show. Like, I questioned whether or not he was actually good enough. I think we believed he was good enough because certain channels tell us he is, right? And because he's a good story and because people tune in to watch. I firmly believe that. Again, I don't believe there's that much to his dad thing. I don't believe that for a second. Again, I think that's 100% media driven. What I do believe that could have turned him off is the interview process. I do 100% believe that, because there's been enough cases now, because of social media, because we know so much, and because all that information is there, that other quarterbacks go in, have bad interviews, and then they still get picked and they don't work out, that they have learned from their mistakes as a league. That's the only thing that I think dropped him as low as he is. I mean, I still don't think, do I think he's a first-round draft pick? I don't know. I'm saying no. And I kind of believe that before the draft. But again, I'm in no place I didn't evaluate the guy, right? I watched him play on highlights, because you don't even watch him play that much, because they're playing at 12 o'clock in the afternoon or late at night, right? So they're not the primetime game. So for me to sit here and say from an evaluation standpoint, I didn't evaluate the guy. What I watched, I thought he was maybe slightly above average for an NFL quarterback, right? I think he is very accurate. I think he does have a little bit of that quote unquote maybe it factor, like he is a winner. There's no question about that. I don't think his arm strength is nearly good enough, but again, I sometimes do believe that can be also overrated. As long as your arm's not weak, there's a difference. But so that's what I think. I think it's one is
let me ask,
because again, when was the last time an NFL team really worried about morals and ethics? When? Never. It's never really happened. We act like it does. Joe Mixon got drafted. He punched a girl square in the face on film, right? I mean, the only person who truly got it, there's two people in the NFL. The running back from Rutgers for what
Ray
he did.
Rice.
Yes. And a guy who took a knee. That's it.
Yeah.
The only two that I know of. And there's other ones, but the only two mainstream, high-profile people that I can remember. I could be very wrong, but that's it.
Let me ask you this, Coach Gar, just in your opinion, and for nobody that knows, the listeners and the guests on here, Coach Garvey coached Ryan Fitzpatrick at Harvard. In your opinion, just watching Shedeur Sanders highlights and seeing firsthand Ryan Fitzpatrick, is Shedeur Sanders ceiling Ryan Fitzpatrick?
Yeah, I think he could be there, but they're different players. Ryan Fitzpatrick is way more athletic than him.
Okay.
Runs way better. Shedeur might have, again, not evaluating them. I mean, Fitzy's arm wasn't great, but it wasn't terrible. But Fitzy I think, has a little bit of that it type of personality. He's a guy. He's a guy.
Okay. I was just curious, thinking of that. So, Drew, what about you? What is your thoughts, in all seriousness, about Sanders and what happened?
Yeah, just from being a football fan and being involved in it and having the Titans picking so high. The first kind of inkling I saw is when, now we all knew Tennessee was taking Cam Ward, but they can still play the part and cross their T's and dot their I's and do their top 30 visits and all that. And they didn't do anything with Shedeur Sanders. Now, they went to his pro day, but they never brought him into the facility. And usually, if you're gonna be a top 5 guy or a first round guy, quarterback wise, still they'll at least bring you in and have that visit. And they never did that, so I thought that was kind of weird. And then everything I've read or watched since, it kind of came down to the fact that what I said before was there really wasn't any starter potential in this quarterback class. There really wasn't. You had Cam Ward, who was that guy. Then everybody else was viewed as a backup. Now, what it kind of came down to, and what I've seen and think happened was, you bring a Shedeur Sanders in, and he's the guy in the room where he has so much with him, not baggage, but he has so much that carries with his name, and he has so much that carries with himself, that he's going to be the spotlight of it all as a backup quarterback. And they kind of said, you don't want your backup quarterback to be the front guy. You want him to be a guy that buys into the culture, so on and so forth. And they compared it like to Tim Tebow when he was in New England or wherever he was. Like, he was getting the interviews, and everyone kind of had the attention on the backup quarterback. So I think the teams really want to deal with that. Probably not. Would they rather take a Dylan Gabriel and have a guy just buy into what you want? Probably. But at some point, someone got to take a flyer on the guy. I mean, he is talented, no doubt about it. And the Browns was that team that did it. I just think teams didn't want to deal with what came with it in the end.
Sure. And to go back to your point about Tim Tebow, that was when he got traded to the Jets. It created a circus.
Yeah, right.
Tim Tebow was the downfall of the New York Jets, not Rex Ryan. It was Tim Tebow. It was Tim Tebow because he brought the circus along with him, and we haven't seen a circus quite like the Tim Tebow circus until Shedeur Sanders. So
and right now, who wants to deal with that? You know what I mean? Who wants that to be the problem? Instead of winning games, it's when's he going to play? Now, say like he's with the Browns now. Who are you going to start? Joe Flacco? As soon as Joe Flacco throws a pick, it's the place is going to go nuts. Put him in. Now, I know coaches don't listen to it, buy into it, but at some point it's going to become an issue.
I agree, and I'll give my opinion on this at the end. But Tony, we're going to go to you next. What's your opinion on this?
Full disclosure, I want Shedeur Sanders to succeed in this. I really do. I'm happy that the Browns got him, but here's what I'm going to say. The kid's got to start being humble. The kid's got to tone it down a little bit. There's nothing wrong with the whole roly celebration. But like one of my good friends said on a podcast I was ironically listening to about the NFL draft earlier this morning. So this is actually perfect timing. If this roly stuff, it works if you're in college. It works if you're starting. But not when you're the face of an NFL franchise. You are being selected out of 32 different teams to potentially be the face of their franchise. Now, don't get me wrong. His father was that dude. Baseball, football, his father was that dude. And I have a lot of respect for Coach Prime. But he's got to step back and let Shedeur, let Shedeur grow. I mean, he can definitely give Shedeur advice and stuff like that. But you can't say, oh, my son isn't going to go to this team. My son isn't going to this team. Deion said it best. Like, he said he wasn't going to fall to a certain level because Deion was that dude who knew he wasn't. Because Deion was that player. It's like comparing Dale Earnhardt Sr. to Dale Earnhardt Jr. Dale Sr., 76 wins, 7-time champion. Dale Earnhardt Jr. was a fan favorite, 29 wins. I believe people are going to hate me for missing the amount of wins he had in his career, but that's kind of like comparing the two. I want Shedeur to succeed. Him speaking at my parents' alma mater, John Marshall up in Cleveland, speaking to the youth there, that's a great start. That really is a great start. And what I'm hoping is that he definitely takes this, that he puts the work in, and proves why he was worthy of being drafted. Were his stats the best? I'm going to say no. He didn't exactly have the best record at Colorado, but I will say I hope he succeeds. And I don't think there's been any kind of collusion to not take him. He's just got to get better at interviews. When he showed up unprepared to an interview, that says to a potential team, do we really want to take on this guy and everything that he comes and brings if he's not prepared? I mean, look at his teammate Travis Hunter. Travis Hunter is on the same team. He went number 2 in the draft. He's a guy who's a wide receiver and cornerback. He just keeps his people will talk all kind of stuff about his girlfriend and stuff like that. But that's all beside the point. Travis Hunter is a great football player. He kept his head down and just learned to play the game. And there have been QBs that have had baggage before. The Browns have, Jameis Winston. He had baggage. Cam Newton had baggage. Baker Mayfield had baggage. Some guy named Johnny Manziel had flopped. Josh Rosen, first round, he's out of the league in 4 years. Did not get picked in the first round because there was some collusion to just not take him because of his dad. It's just, I don't know why people are going to go with that. If that was true, then Cam Ward wouldn't have been taken number 1. That's what I got to say about that. It wasn't collusion against him.
Okay. What about you, Chris? What are you saying on this?
Now, Fitty, I don't know your opinion yet, and I love everybody on this panel, but I'm going to say some things, and they haven't been received well in my friend circle, so I'm just going to throw it out there. Okay?
Oh, yeah, here you go. We got the controversial topics on the Ride Home Rant.
Conspiracy guy whatsoever. I feel like you reap what you sow. And much like Bill stated at the beginning, I did not evaluate him. I used to in high school study hall and in college, and when I didn't have a family and kids, I'd break down the film and I'd have a real strong opinion on him as a player. I'm going to leave all of the player talk aside for this. I just want to look at the person, because ideally what you're drafting here as an NFL quarterback is the face of your franchise. So playing aside, I think we could all agree he should have been drafted somewhere. Maybe day 1 was a little lofty. Really feel in my heart of hearts, day 2 probably should have been somewhere in there. Really stunned he made it to the 5th round. Okay? He has never reportedly done any drugs. He has no drinking problem. He donates his time to go talk to kids. Tony mentioned as soon as he got to Cleveland, he went and did it. He's never been in trouble with the law. There's no videos of him running from police getting tackled. I hate saying this, but, who runs the NFL? And I'm not trying to make it racial, but it's 32 old white men. What don't old white men typically like? Change, flair, your mouth writing checks that your butt hasn't cashed yet, right? They don't want a video crew around. They don't want his brother around shooting tape. They don't like all the bling, the dancing, his dad saying some of the things he said pre-draft. Now, the bad interviews, that's a bad job interview should dock you. Like we talked about, there's some real less than savory men that play in the NFL. It is not a choir's club of good dudes. And for me to sit here and see Tyler Shuck, what the hell has Tyler Shuck won? All he's done is get hurt. But he's tall and has a big arm, so we're going to take a flyer on him. Good luck with that. That's a joke to me. And again, not the player. Maybe Tyler Shuck is more physically talented than Shedeur. But you're going to tell me everything that this kid's accomplished, he's a 5th-round pick? And that doesn't sit well with me. I can't, if you want to talk about he's not good enough physically, there's no elite trait, I'll sit here, get a cup of coffee, I'll get a beer, I'll listen to that. You cannot tell me that as a CEO type for your franchise, he's no more valuable than a 5th-round pick. I'm yelling collusion all the way home. And to be honest with you, whether the Browns got him or not, I really think if no one traded up for him that he was going to go undrafted so the league could try to prove a point to him. So I'm happy the Browns did end up with him. As long as it wasn't the Steelers or Ravens, I'd be cheering for him regardless. But I would really take some convincing to tell me otherwise that he's worthy of a 5th-round pick and not higher. Just with his record and how flawless it is, really rubs me the wrong way.
Okay, so we got 4 different opinions on that. So I'm going to round this out, and we're going to move on to another topic here. We're going to finish with the final 2 on the 6-pack of questions. But here's my thing: you went 13-11 as a starter at Colorado. You were sacked the most in the NCAA in 2 seasons. You did not elevate your team to be better. right? Great quarterbacks elevate teams to be better in college, and they will physically dominate when they have the physical traits. So to Coach Garvey's point that Ryan Fitzpatrick was probably more athletic, that's valid. Johnny Manziel, more athletic. A lot of other guys, more athletic. They elevated teams. They made them better. If you look at who Sanders played, though, at Colorado, outside of Oregon 2 years ago, he played very, very little teams that had NFL talent. You know what his stats were against that bloodbath with the Oregon game? 23 of 33, 159 yards and 1 touchdown. And he took 11 rushes for a negative 49 yards. They lost 42-6. He didn't elevate people around him. I think the telltale sign of how overrated he was as a player was the beatdown against the Stormin' Mormons of BYU in the bowl game, because you can't tell me you're a great player when BYU did not have anyone forecasted to be drafted until at least the 4th round, and you lost 36-14 by going 16 for 23 for 208 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. If you can't succeed in the teams you're playing in college and dominate, you aren't in the Big Ten, right? You're not in the SEC. So I get it. But if you can't dominate in the Big 12, how are you going to dominate in the NFL or be super successful? So, yes, Chris.
Real quick, wanted to chime in because I forgot this. He had nobody blocking for him, and his leading rusher both years at Colorado had 300 yards for the year. It's like asking Tim Couch to be good in Cleveland with no weapons.
For sure. I'll give you that. But you can't have the Heisman winner on your team and only win 13 games in 2 years.
I hear you on that.
So in the Big 12, not the SEC, the Big 12.
In addition, he lost to a Kansas team that has 7 losses and a Nebraska team that also had 7 losses.
So
to go against that point, they were probably the worst college football team when he got there.
I was going to say the same thing.
Sure. So we'll take out. Fine, we'll take out.
But I understand what you're saying too.
Mm-hmm.
Evaluating film, everyone's evaluating who he's playing against as well. No question. No question about that.
Right. Because it's not always, and I learned this. Coach I was under, not Coach Garvey, but one of the other guys I was under told me this. It's not how good you are. It's how good is everybody else. And everybody else he played wasn't that good outside of Oregon and that beatdown of BYU. So, but we're going to kind of leave it at that. So a couple different opinions. We'll see what time says, though, about Shedeur Sanders.
No doubt.
So speaking of Colorado, we're going to go with this one. Coach Garvey, what's Travis Hunter's ceiling? Is he as good as everyone says? And what do you think he's going to do in the NFL?
I think he is as good as everyone says. Might even be better. It will be very interesting to see how many snaps a game he can play at that level. Because again, to your point of they didn't play anybody. Yes, he's playing both ways and playing so many snaps. His competition was less, right? So from that evaluation standpoint, now he is a phenomenal athlete. Better than his mentor, I think, right? Because his mentor is probably the best athlete that's ever lived in sport, ever. Right. Bo Jackson, I guess, would be the only other one. And maybe there's some great basketball player that too. Maybe Michael Jordan's close, but not really because he couldn't play baseball like Deion or Bo Jackson for that matter. So the one thing is that he's a very slight human being, but he does never take a shot square ever in his life. I don't think he has. So, man, I do think his ceiling is probably higher than what we think it is.
Okay.
He's a dynamic person.
Okay. Drew, what do you think Travis Hunter's ceiling is in the NFL?
I think he is. I am amazed by what he does on a consistent basis, offensively and defensively. Now, we had this argument yesterday in our staff locker room. What's easier? Would you rather him be an offensive guy and minor in defense, or a defensive guy and minor in offense? And we argue about that for an hour. And people are throwing out, it's easier to, it's harder to learn an offense and where to go and where to line up and what route you're running on this formation and this play. And on defense, hey, go man up that cat and man him up, and that's it. And then the other argument was defense is so much hard. Coach Marsco can back me up on this. Defense is so much harder to know scheme and fit and calls and coverages and where you're rolling and all of that. In an offense, you can say, hey, just go run a seven route, go run a flag, go run a 9. So we probably were there for an hour just arguing about it. But in the end of it all, if you're having the topic about him doing both, he got to be an extraordinary athlete and an extraordinary player. And I am really, really, really upset that Jacksonville took him because I got to see him twice a year now on both sides of the ball when he plays the Titans. So I'm not happy about that. But, he's a relevant player. He's going to bring a lot of buzz to Jacksonville. And even though I'm a Titans fan, I can't really wait to watch what they do and what he does because it hasn't been seen in a long time.
Okay. Tony, what are your thoughts on Travis Hunter in the NFL?
You get a once-in-a-lifetime player like that can succeed not only on offense and defense. And the thing is, as I stated earlier, he's had some stuff that has surrounded him. People have been talking all kind of mess about his girlfriend and stuff, his soon-to-be wife and stuff like that, which he's blocked out all that noise, which is good for him to block out all that noise and just focus on playing the sport he loves. And one of my good buddies up in Wayne County, he actually got a chance to take photos of their wedding or take their engagement photos, which is really awesome. I was hoping that Travis would end up coming to Cleveland, but he's with Jacksonville now. I'll say as long as he just keeps his head down, stays focused, doesn't get distracted, and doesn't get injured, he can have a really solid career. He's just got to just stay healthy and just keep his mind straight and surround himself with the right people. Because if you don't surround yourself with the right people, it doesn't matter how talented you are. You can crash out in a matter of 3 to 4 years and you'll be looked at as one of the biggest NFL draft busts of all time, which I hope that Travis Hunter does not become.
Okay. What about you, Chris? What do you say on this?
I mean, Tony made 2 great points. I want to mention them before I forget them. If he keeps the right people around him and keeps a level head, and God willing, he could stay injury-free, I think it would be more surprising if he wasn't a Hall of Famer. The body control he has to be able to go high point the ball, to be able to catch it falling down, his hand strength, his ability to snap off defenders, his ability to, on defense, how many corners go up and high point a football? I mean, I think as a defensive-minded guy myself, normally you put your guys that can't catch a corner because they can still run and cover. This guy could actually go get the ball and turn it over for you. And I find it really funny that no one chooses to acknowledge, not you guys, just in general, that he played in Colorado and went both ways. Where is there a harder place to train, be an athlete, try to breathe than Colorado? He's doing all those plays in Colorado? My goodness. Now, I do think he needs to bulk up a little bit because the league does wear on you. It's a league of giants. But if he could do all those snaps up in the elements in Colorado and you're on the outside like that, you're not banging every play like a lineman. It's a lot of 7-on-7 type stuff. You're not necessarily in the run fit a bunch as a corner. I don't see why he can't play both ways 8-10 years in the league. Now, I think as you taper off, obviously you got to slant one way, and kind of what Coach McLaughlin mentioned, I think it'd be harder for him to do defense because, like offense, you could screw up the route, the scramble drill. There's always a way to get you the ball. Jets. Defense, you roll the wrong way, it's 6. And then 3 people look like a jackass. So I think it's going to be harder for him to do defense, but if everything falls in line, he could stay healthy. I think he's a Hall of Famer.
Okay. So I'm going to throw out a couple different things here. So Coach Garvey talked about, some of the more athletic people of all time. So people may laugh on this, people may not know, but don't forget, John Elway was a 2nd-round draft pick in Major League Baseball for the New York Yankees and was a 1st-round NFL draft pick during his time. And we all know what John Elway did. So when we're talking about most athletic professional sports people ever,
Good point. Good one.
Don't forget John Elway. And brilliant, went to Stanford. So it's another. When you come from Stanford, you're built a certain type of way because the academics come first there. And that guy was a two-sport standout at Stanford. So remember that when we're talking about super athletic people. So just throwing that out there for our older fans on the podcast. The second thing I'm going to throw out is when you're thinking about Travis Hunter, though, think he's on a very, very bad team. Okay, he went second overall. When you go second overall, you're not going to usually a good team. So where is he going to have more of an impact? Corner ain't winning you football games when you're a bad team. Wide receiver with the quarterback they have maybe will help you win games. If he's playing corner, he ain't helping you win games. You're going to be 4-13. So what's more important? Winning games, playing wide receiver, and maybe dabbling in corner, or playing corner and losing games because you have no offense? So that's the way you have to figure it out too. I would say, he never really went against elite receivers in college outside of maybe Oregon with the offense they had there. Now, I don't know his stats against Oregon, but to lose 42-6, I'm probably sure your stats weren't very good, especially if Sanders did not throw very much that game. So that's kind of a tell of the tape on that. He had a little bit more success, against the BYU game, offensively, maybe defensively too. So, I think you got to say too, it's a tell of the tape of who you're playing. I think he can be very, very good. Is he going to play both ways for his whole career? Probably not, because guys like Chris Gamble tried that, played at Ohio State against much higher competition. Chris Gamble couldn't hold up in the NFL doing that, built the same way. And probably one of the last guys to do it out of necessity was Troy Brown during the Patriots playoff runs way, way back in the day. And Troy Brown was a receiver first and a DB second. So time will tell. I think he'll be good on both sides of the ball, but I think if he wants to be great, he needs to be a wide receiver for the Jaguars. Nobody pays attention to corners on 4-13 teams. So one of the last things I'm going to ask, in your honest opinions, and Tony's in the media, and Drew coaches, and Chris has been at YSU as a student coach and has seen some NFL guys around, and of course Coach Garvey is Coach Garvey and has seen guys come and go with the NFL and college, all around. Who's really pulling the trigger on the draft for NFL players when you're with a team? Is it the GM? Is it the owner? Or is it the coach? Who's really drafting these guys, and whose word really matters? Coach Garvey, we're going to go with you first.
Oh, I think it's a team organization thing. Honestly, I know, again, it's probably not a very good answer. It's probably not answering the question. I think every single organization is different, with where the input comes from and then who makes the final decision. Because did you say the owner too? I mean, yeah. Right. I mean, when it comes down to it, I wonder, like everyone said, again, it's some media driven. Did Cleveland take? You got all the social media posts of the GM and the head coach just like kind of slowly cheering when they picked Shedeur and didn't look real happy about it. I don't even know if that was real. I have no idea, but it certainly doesn't look good. Right. So they're saying the owner did it. Right. I don't know. I think it depends on the organization. I think organizations have moved from the Bill Belichick era of I'm in charge, I do everything, the Bill Parcells theories, all those. I think those days are gone. I think there's too much liability in the whole thing. You know what I mean? But when it comes down to it, if it's a good organization, everybody with the owner and owners with the less say, because you hired people to do a job. You would hope. But you're also in charge.
Okay. Drew, what do you think? Who do you think's truly making these decisions for NFL teams?
Yeah, it's a good question. And actually, I'm a big Mike Vrabel fan, being a Titans guy and an Ohio State guy. And last year when he was with the Browns, he kind of did a little media tour and did some podcasts here and there because he had the time to do it. And he was with PFT and those guys. And they almost asked a very similar question that you asked. Like, when you're in those draft rooms, what's going on? And he gave a pretty honest answer. And he said, essentially, it's you have an idea who you want. Everybody does. And you always have to have the owner sign off on it. You can want everybody, the scouts, head coach, all the coaches, the GM can be on the same page. But if the owner doesn't sign off on it, you might be looking in a different direction. So it seems like, this is just the Titans. It can be different. That's 1 of 32. It can be different anywhere else. But it seemed like they're, not it's Amy Armstrong. It didn't seem like she had any input and said, put her fist down, but she had to be okay with what they did. And, that I think that's what it comes down to. And, these owners are putting the money up, so they probably want to have their final sign off on it. So it seems like that's the case.
Okay. It made me think of this, and I'm gonna throw this out, but it makes me think of like, this is NFL franchise 1. This is Superior NFL franchise 2. A lot of it goes back to what Dan Lanning said when they played Colorado. They play for clicks. We play for wins. And there's NFL franchises that draft for clicks, and there's NFL NFL organizations that draft for wins.
Absolutely.
When you're worried about clicks and media headlines, Jets, Browns, all the dumpster organizations in the NFL, you don't care. That's all you care about. Media. When you make behind the door picks, that are quiet, Ravens, Steelers, Falcons, teams like that, those are teams that care about wins. And I think that is all dependent on the owner. But I think what Dan Lanning said, people play for clicks and people play for wins, it is valid with NFL owners too. So, but Tony, what would you say? Who's making the draft picks?
I would have to say the organization. The GM talks to the owner and says, hey, we want to see what this guy's like. Because you definitely, in addition to talent, in a way, you definitely have to take character into consideration, because this player that you're going to draft is going to be the potential face of your franchise. Not that the NFL is full of choir boys, but you want to get somebody who at least comes the closest to a choir boy, because they're going to be there for at least four years minimum, with the option to pick up a 5th year if they do good enough. So I would have to say the GM talks to the owner, and then you definitely get the coach's input, and then you just go from there.
Okay. I think the last choir boy the NFL had was probably Roger Staubach, who was probably the most clean-cut person to ever come into the NFL, right out of the Navy. Clean-shaven, buzz cut, just straight military all the time. And that was a long, long time ago. People may not even know who Roger Staubach is anymore. So Coach Garvey and I do, though, because we're old. But, another thing, and before Chris answers this, and going back to Coach Garvey's point, the famous Bill Parcells, top 10 coach of all time, better than Mike Tomlin. I will argue that to the day I die. Bill Parcells did say, though, he goes, if they want me to cook in the kitchen, they got to let me at least buy groceries. And what he meant was, if you want me to be successful on the field, you got to let me get my own players. So just, saying of what Bill Parcells used to say, though, too. So, Chris, round us out on this to end this show.
I think the truth lies somewhere in between everything. I mean, I think we all said it. It's an organizational thing. It's like flavors of ice cream. Ice cream's great. I think we could all agree on that. And there's a variety of different ways for it to be great. So I think, though, to answer the question, I think the way the most successful organizations have it set up is that the GM is hired to pick the players. He should work in lockstep with the coach. He should present before the pick, hey, we're down to these 1 or 2 guys. What's your preference? But at the end of the day, it's the GM's final call. And, I kind of look at the owner and all this as the grandparents sitting in the rocking chair, giving them the $5 to go get the ice cream. As long as there ain't no major red flag and the coach and the GM are on board with it, they're a yes man. Like you said, unless it's a bad organization, we're worried about clicks, and then they go rogue and go power hungry. You don't see that from the good organization. So, much like a school runs or anything else, you sign people to their role. They should communicate, but at the end of the day, I think it should fall on the GM.
Okay. Well, everybody, thank you so much for coming on today. Coach Garvey and Coach Marsko and Coach McLaughlin and Tony, speaking from the media side of things. This was really, really great. Our serious 6-pack of questions, unpacking the NFL draft here with the Fab Four on this week's episode of the Ride Home Rants podcast. To all of our old listeners and new listeners, thank you so much for tuning in to check this out. And as always, if you enjoyed the show, be a friend and tell a friend. all about it. Because if you liked it and they didn't like it, or you like it and they don't, whatever it may be, just keep telling people about it. We love having fun here, and we love exploring new subjects all the time here. So definitely check us out this summer as we get past this show with some more roundtables that we're going to do. Also, check us out with some of our new guests that we're going to be having on here. So, guys, thank you so much again on behalf of Ride Home Rants and me and Mike for being on today. And we were going to see everybody on the next episode next week.
The Ride Home Rants podcast is brought to you by W Energy. Energy drinks made for gamers, streamers, and podcasters alike. For gamers, streamers, and podcasters alike. Go to the link in the description where you can find the best energy drinks out there. Less caffeine than a cup of coffee. Also, no jitters and no crash afterwards. Use the promo code Mike Bono and get yourself 10% off. Also, the Ride Home Rants podcast is brought to you by my favorite sponsor of the show, and that is Shankit Golf. Golf apparel made for the everyday golfer. We might not go out and shoot a 6 under par. We're probably going to shoot a 6 over par, but this is going to give us the gear that's going to help us rock it on and off of the course. Go to the link in the bio, use the promo code Mike Bono, and get yourself 10% off there as well.